Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Donaram.com podcast. I'm sitting around with Beau this evening, of course, enjoying a nice, refreshing Busch Light. And we're sitting around and we were thinking, whenever I need my quad cab GMC Canyon breathing right, I look no further than Walmart because they've got Canon air filters, and we wish they were sponsoring tonight's episode because they're always they're just the best.
You're paying for it. You're paying more for it, but you're getting what you pay for.
Yeah, it's a premium charge. Don't get me wrong, but with that air filter, you're getting a quality part for your vehicle. You're going to increase your horsepower by at least 50, and you get a sweet sticker with it as well. Anyway, while we're on the invigorating subject of Canon air filters, we're also talking about some of our favorite MMOs. And I, of course, am a huge a WoW fan. I have been for years. Prior to me getting into WoW, I actually played Guild Wars 2 and Star Wars The Old Republic a whole lot. But I think you mentioned, Beau, that March 16th was the 20th anniversary of one of the pioneering MMOs, if not the first MMO. Was Ultima before
Ultima was before.
But nonetheless, still a huge cornerstone in the MMO industry, and that would be EverQuest.
EverQuest, yeah, so EverQuest is 20. It's 20 years live. People have been playing EverQuest for 20 consecutive years. I think it's gone through 3 companies. I think it's on its 3rd company.
The thing I didn't realize about EverQuest was, one, I've never actually played it. I'm so familiar with that iconic image of that sorceress or whatever.
Furion of I.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. But what the game's about, like, I've never even tried. By the time I even got around to realizing it was a thing, it looked like it was too old or whatnot to even start for me to pick up. But then it's still going today.
Yeah, and what's crazy about the too old thing, and let me start this off. I am a WoW fan as well. EverQuest is just always going to have a special place in my heart. I never actually had my own EverQuest account back in the day. I bought it at Walmart and brought it home with the allowance money, and I'm like, cool, I can't wait to set this up. And then I saw like the subscription thing, and I had to talk to my parents about it, and they're like, no. Like,
oh my God.
This is 1999.
Yeah.
They didn't know what the hell was going on. But I had several friends that had it, and when I'd go to their houses, I would play on their accounts. And EverQuest is an extremely slow game, so I was a super casual player playing this game.
Now, that's interesting that you say that. Is it slow like vanilla WoW was slow, or is it even slower than that?
So the thing is, right now, so WoW's coming out with its extremely popular idea of classic servers coming soon. Right. I say servers. I can't imagine they're going to do this all on one server. I can't imagine that.
No, it would be a cluster.
Right. So they're doing this. And the thing is, Blizzard's always said, well, EverQuest has been doing what they call time lock progression servers for years. And what it is typically it will start off in vanilla classic, or as they call it, classic EverQuest, and every 12 weeks or so, a new server will unlock. A new expansion will unlock. There are currently 25 EverQuest expansions. So that's a lot. So the new ones that just opened, CeeLo, which is a fast server. I think it starts off in Lukeland. And
so before we get too much into that, what's the basic story of EverQuest? Like, what's the game even about?
So this is kind of an interesting concept because before WoW, MMOs didn't really have a plot. They were just worlds that you played in.
Okay. There's no quest or anything, or they're just monsters?
Later expansions would add that, but
is it set up in such a way that it's kind of hoping that there's a party leader and that's going to be quote unquote your DM?
So very interesting thing to bring up. So EverQuest was a game that was really about playing with each other. People say this all the time about Classic WoW, but even Classic WoW wasn't this hardcore. There are classes in EverQuest that you can't hope to do anything unless you group up. There are what you call soloable classes, but for the most part, for instance, the first one that comes to mind is Rogue. You're not surviving on your. In fact, if you are soloing past level 15 with a Rogue, that is
you're a good rogue.
That is it's impossible. Almost you're going to get mangled. So that's kind of the interesting thing that you bring that up, and people would the role playing on old school EverQuest was outrageous because there was no central plot. Like you just do whatever you wanted. And EverQuest there's just so much freedom in it, and it's such a hardcore game. I mentioned Classic WoW. For one, it's ridiculous they say they haven't been able to do it until now because EverQuest, this is a game with...
You know what they mean by that? They mean, I don't know if we have a market for it.
Right, which is ridiculous because they were shutting private servers down all the time. By the way, when Daybreak Games found out that Project 1999 was running, which is a fan server that is locked in, I think, Scars of Velius era, so the trilogy, the original EverQuest trilogy. And when they found out about it, they were like, hey, just don't make any money off of it.
Yeah.
And then they because they're doing these classic ones, and time lock progression servers also are one of the few things in EverQuest locked behind a paywall. It's one of the few things you need a subscription to do.
That's interesting. You don't need a subscription for the new expansions, or
yes, you do.
A one-time cost.
It is a one-time cost, and I believe you need to be current on your subscription to play those. But like I said, one of the few things. But if you want to play the first 23 expansions, just...
So it's still interesting that you say there's no central plot to it, because you also mentioned that there's a trilogy. So what would EverQuest 2 be like?
They did in EverQuest. Well, the trilogy, I mean, by trilogy, that's just the common term for it. That's EverQuest. That's classic EverQuest, Ruins of Kunark, and Scars of Velius, the first two expansions.
Are those just unlocking new zones?
Yes,
Okay.
Very often. And EverQuest, the interesting thing about EverQuest expansions is it's not always in-game content that you're unlocking when you buy it.
Gotcha.
There's new low-level zones even sometimes. There's always something to do in EverQuest.
Sure.
And I will say this: if you didn't play back in the day, you're probably not gonna like it if you get into it now. I will say that.
Like it, or just get it in general.
Right.
Like with Ultima, you could log in and be a shop person, couldn't you?
Right. Yeah. It was a lot of people. One of my very good friends was a horse breeder in Ultima Online, and that's just what he did. He didn't want to fight. You know, he's a breeder, not a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's still interesting. Okay, so you get in there with a group of your friends, and you just go out adventuring and see how many things you could kill. Get as much.
Killing
loot.
mobs is a lot of EverQuest.
Yeah.
It's
is it more akin to Diablo?
Sort of, yes. Probably the most jarring thing for someone coming from WoW is coming to EverQuest is there's no rotations. That's not the way your spells work.
How do they work?
You just do what a D&D character would do.
Oh, prepare them. Is there a day-night cycle?
Well, no. There's still it's still like there's still mana regeneration. You have mana points, and you still cast spells. But what I mean is like with a warrior, I mean spells in the broad term. Right. So like a warrior, you just have your attack.
Gotcha.
And you could taunt.
Okay. And
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you would only do those things when it would make sense to do those things,
sure,
rather than Mortal Strike, stuff like that. So
this is starting to sound like Ark. Have you ever played that game?
Nope, never played Ark.
Ark is a game. It's kind of neat. It's a neat concept. I don't know. I think it's actually got kind of a niche community to it now. But it's a game that drops you into this world. You basically have nothing. But you've got to kind of gather the stuff, gather your wares, gather your weapons and whatnot, and simply survive. I mean, you go out and venture and you explore and you investigate more about to understand the world around you. but there isn't a central quest, so to say. There's no like Lord Archimond or whatnot is out there and he's going to destroy the world unless you, the divine hero, rises up.
Right.
None of that. So it's starting to sound like what EverQuest is. Like you get your character, you level, you explore these different areas, but that's kind of what the point is. And that was the point for at least the first 3. They just unlock different zones. So you mentioned that they have 25 expansions, so we've gotten through the first 3. What about 4? Did they ever start to try and develop a story?
Yeah, eventually, as they started competing with WoW, there were stories. And there was always stories, like, the raids there was always a story behind them, but like it was more of the sense of just really cool lore. Gotcha. Like not really like it's kind of hard to explain, but EverQuest has some really cool lore. In fact, EverQuest had a pen and paper RPG for a while that was that's pretty cool. Neat. That's actually one of the. If you want a lore book for EverQuest, I highly suggest buying the Player's Handbook for the EverQuest RPG. A lot of cool lore there, and the thing I loved about EverQuest was just soloing was so. Not like even now, I'm a dad. With all I'm playing EverQuest again on the Mangler server. We're currently in Classic on it, and I just feel like it's a great way because I never got the full EverQuest experience because I was always playing at friends' houses. So this is kind of a cool way to do that. And even now, like you just hop into general chat for whatever continent you're on. This level, whatever class you are, I'm a ranger right now. I'm pathetically low. I just hit 3 last night. Oh, nice. I just started.
Does it take a while? Like, how many hours does it take to get to 3?
It just depends on how well you're it just depends on how, if you got a good camp. Yeah, that's another thing that's big with EverQuest. You find a camp, and you sit there, and you let the mobs respawn. And I know this sounds like it sucks, but it's so much fun.
Well, I'm going at the approach of it as when I'm explaining Harvest Moon to somebody.
Right. But,
and I genuinely love D&D. While I know the DM might have like story paths I can go down, I don't largely know the reason. I didn't read the back of the box before we started DMing for us. But that is interesting that it kind of gives you a sandbox sort of world for you and your friends to just get in there and role play and do whatever the heck you want. If you think that this dragon. Are there dragons? Surely there's
there's dragons.
If you think this dragon is a threat to the city, even though like the dragon is never going to go away from its little mountain, that's still neat that it gives you that option. But it is telling that because if it was 3 expansions deep, 2004, 2005 might have been close to when that 4th expansion for EverQuest came out, which would have been right around when WoW was launching their MMO and changing gaming, at least in the MMO industry.
Oh, yeah.
So EverQuest, you're right, in order for them to survive, they would have had to started to develop maybe a central story. What's interesting about that, and what I'm curious, is, okay, so they come up with this world story, right? In 4, or starting with 4, if I'm following you correctly.
I mean, I can't remember exactly where they started having narratives kind of take over, and because like if you start on a live server right now, not a TLP, not a time lock progression, but a live server, you actually start off your character was kidnapped by kobolds, and you're being held in a dungeon. You have to escape this dungeon. So I'm not. Part of my goal with Mangler is I think it's going to take Mangler 2 years to catch up with live.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take my time and see everything in EverQuest I didn't get to see. Yeah. So I will eventually come upon the expansion where they decided to add this central narrative into which most hardcore EverQuest people are not happy about that. Like it's EverQuest. Like what's funny is all these people talk about how hardcore classic WoW is going to be. They have no idea.
Sure.
Like EverQuest was hard. If you died, you took an EXP penalty.
It seems like the guy that was introduced to D&D in 3.5, but he's got some older people. They're like, "Oh man, 2 was the heyday," and suddenly he's going to adopt the opinion that, "Oh, you know what? I'm totally about 2nd edition. Let's play 2nd edition tonight." They play 2nd edition and they starve.
And that's kind of the way it is so in EverQuest when you died you took I think under level 10 you didn't take this penalty, but you take an EXP penalty and Your corpse is just a lootable corpse.
Oh,
you have to respawn and run back to it.
Yeah.
And get your shit before anyone can come along and grab it.
Yeah. You could absolutely golem somebody.
Right. And it's so and WoW never had that. There was always the graveyards. Always. And your little spirit guy.
All right. So with this being kind of a sandbox, I'm starting to get it. Now I keep wanting to ask you about lore and questions, but the more we talk about it, the more I'm getting, it's not the point, maybe.
Now, there's some expansive, really cool lore.
Yeah.
They made a world for this.
But that's after the 4th expansion, right?
No, there was base lore, just like facts about the world.
Okay.
So, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, but not, I guess I'm saying it wrong.
When you make a character, he doesn't matter.
Right. There you go.
It's basically what it is.
But, so then that just makes me think of a whole bunch of D&D things to kind of place upon for questions instead of trying to question it like I would a new MMO today.
Right.
Basic question. What are the races?
The races are the races we got in the original Classic EverQuest are just, your standard fantasy fare. You've got wood elves, high elves, half elves, halfling gnome,
Orcs?
Nope, ogres and trolls. And dark. So you have all the normal races like human, all that, like the player's handbook races for D&D and wood and plus wood elves. And then you actually have 3 monster quote unquote races, which are dark elves, ogres, and trolls. Mm-hmm. And these are extremely powerful characters, especially ogres and trolls. They're extremely strong, and stats matter a lot in EQ.
Sure.
But they're also still seen as monsters. And you will get attacked if you go near like a decent city,
like a human city or something like that.
Yep. So like your home city's fine, and also you pick a god in EverQuest that you follow. Mm-hmm. That could get you killed going certain places, kill on sight. And I think if memory serves, I think even like playing a rogue can get you in trouble going in certain cities or something like that. Like it's very for not having a central narrative is very immersive. Like it's very realistic. Like swimming, you better be skilled in swimming or you're gonna drown.
Sure.
You better find a trainer and skill up. Whereas in WoW, you just sort of jump in and take off. Money's hard to come by. Experience points are hard to come by. The reason you see so many halflings is because they get an EXP bonus.
And even if you buy EverQuest, it's a hard life, young Anakin. Anyway, okay, so we've established the races and whatnot. What about classes?
Classes, so you, again, standard fantasy fare, warrior, rogue. Then you have several different types of casters. You have enchanter, necromancer, mage, and wizard. Wizard's just pure nukes. Mm-hmm. Pure nukes. Mage is a couple itty-bitty nukes, but you could summon monsters.
Sure.
Necromancer is evil mage.
Yeah.
You summon undead instead of, and demons and stuff like that. And then enchanter is like the hardest class to play in the game. Your buffs and stuff out of the butt, just stuff like that. Then you have bards, which I think is cool. Yeah. Like, one of the things I love about EverQuest is it has 2 things in it that WoW doesn't have that I just don't understand because people go crazy about in WoW, and that is a bard class. Right. People love bards. Look at any D&D meme page on Facebook. They're always going on about bards, which if anyone came to my table playing a bard like that, I would be so mad. It's just annoying, the way that those people joke.
And anyway. Which is more interesting about WoW, because WoW is a huge thing of lore. And that's what bards are for. I mean, can you imagine the quest? That would be tight.
Absolutely.
In Legion, their artifact quest would have been perfect.
But that's gone.
Although
now.
I don't know how they would have split that out into 3 different types of bards.
That's easy. One could be like a performer type bard. He'd be a DPS. No, the performer type bard could even be like a healer, maybe.
Sure.
And then they could have a more roguish bard. Like, yeah, they could easily do that. Okay. And another thing is a race in EverQuest that they don't have in WoW. It's my favorite D&D race of all time. Half-elves.
Oh,
I just don't know. There's half-elves in the lore.
Yeah.
In fact, one of them played huge in Legion story.
Yeah.
What was his name? Guy.
I forget.
Sir Guy. But that's just always upset me that was never an option in WoW. Like it's such a classic D&D thing to be a half elf.
Oh yeah, and I mean, come on, if you've got there's going to be some intermingling. Like
exactly.
If in WoW, you can have that half orc lady from that movie, from the movie. Where's the half elf?
Right, exactly.
They were on the same damn planet.
Right. So that's kind of the thing.
Which also shows the dedication of a guy that's willing to go through a portal and through space to get to another planet to have sex with someone that's not him.
In the movie, it was Medivh.
Correct.
Yeah, it was revealed. Spoiler alert: Medivh is Grona's dad in the movie. Also, I think did we talk about how the Warcraft movie is actually a really good movie on the podcast?
We actually that's it's
Let's
funny
save
you
it for another time.
Brought that up because it is, as I'm getting deeper into Lore Watch. Yeah, there's things developing on my mind for a whole talk on that.
But and another thing that EverQuest has is my second favorite D&D race of all time, halflings. There's no halflings in WoW. Like WoW, as original as WoW is, and don't get me wrong, if anytime I talk about EQ, it sounds like I'm shitting on WoW. I love WoW.
Oh my god, yes.
But there's just something about EverQuest,
I mean, you like your cell phone, but a walk in the woods is fun too.
Exactly, it's fun to go look. And another thing is every modern MMO.
Yeah.
Every modern MMO owes a ton to Warcraft because everyone's trying to copy that success.
Sure.
Final Fantasy XIV is literally Weeb WoW.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is. But they owe... EverQuest started this whole thing. Ultima Online was super niche.
Oh,
very basement dwelling. I still remember in 2002, this is Shadows of Lukeland era. I still remember seeing one of the coolest kids at my high school, a very affluent suburban high school, because where it was zoned, I still lived out here in the country, but where it was zoned, I went to this school. I wound up going to Boonville, which was the much more suited to those of my ilk for when I graduated. But I started off at a very affluent suburban school. And I still remember one of the coolest Abercrombie and Fitch. Do you remember that in the early 2000s?
Oh my god, yeah.
Such a status symbol.
Yeah, Old Navy, Abercrombie.
Yeah, this kid was Abercrombie and Fitched out. I still remember him coming in and yelling at one of his friends for fucking up the raid the night before. I'll never forget the scene. Just absolutely, I mean, in front of the girls and everything. Yeah. And that's kind of when I first realized, like, whoa.
Yeah.
The paradigm shifted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was... in fact, I talked about it with someone, and so EverQuest actually had something to do with that great shift where, like, in the 90s, you could still be a nerd. There's no such thing as a nerd past, like, 2001.
No,
like,
not
football
like
players
what it used
and,
to
like,
be.
I mean...
The Revenge of the Nerds type of nerd
exactly.
is not around.
And I was one of those people.
Yeah.
But it's the paradigm shifted completely, and I really think it was the 2000 X-Men movie.
Yeah.
And or that might have been 99 even. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
But
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings was the big one. Fellowship was the big one.
Yeah. Suddenly medieval fantasy is kind of cool.
And like I still remember the first time I was in a Comic Quest looking through some what few second edition books they had left at the time.
Right.
Because they were phasing those out. And I remember a guy in a Letterman jacket with his admittedly very pretty girlfriend coming up to me and saying, like, hey, we're trying to get a game started. Looks like you play. Any tips? And it's like, it was just such an event. Like, so, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that are being very gatekeeper about this still, even to this day. Guys, it's over. They're in.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things I've heard recently about D&D was someone was sharing a story about like a diverse group of people that got together to play it, and this game is for everyone. Like,
sure,
it's cool that everyone's playing Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah.
It's cool that WoW was... Mila Kunis played WoW. She did. She went on and on about... I watched an interview she did on like one of the late night shows.
Yeah.
She was going off about a raid. Like, so she was actually a hardcore player back in the day.
Tying into the D&D, what's EverQuest paired with as far as tabletop gaming? Like, what's its influence?
Oh, Dungeons & Dragons. Straight Dungeons & Dragons.
Sorry, more specific. What rule set? Is it 3? Is it 2?
Oh no, it's a completely different rule set. It was an MMO after all. I mean, it really. I always equate both WoW and EverQuest to Second Edition because the people that developed them played Second Edition very heavily.
Well, I think of EverQuest, and for some reason my mind goes to Baldur's Gate, and Baldur's Gate was based on Second Edition.
Yes, Baldur's Gate actually was a hardcore Second Edition rule set, which it's incredible to me. Everyone tells me they fondly remember that game, and then they say that Second Edition's too complicated for them.
Because they have to think about it, and a computer's not doing it for them.
But when you're building your character, you still got to think about,
Right, but you don't have to roll the dice.
That's the difference.
Or use your hand for writing.
But you don't have to think about how you roll a die.
No, but building my point
is die the
building
singular or the
building
plural?
A character in D&D, whether or version 3.5 or any really is different than sitting here with a computer program and going. You can go through it quicker.
Boy,
that's probably it.
I have literally never made a Baldur's Gate character without having my handbook open. I've literally never done it.
Nope, I've ran through them super quick, and it allows for those people that want to go through it super quick to do it.
And I re-roll my stats all day.
Yeah.
If I don't get a 96, I ain't taking it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
I mean,
I play it on my phone now, and I will just idly tap at it while at work.
This is going to sound terrible to people that don't know you and I, but the fact that you have to put in the effort for it to write it down, to read something in the book, is for some reason more daunting to folks than just flying through it on a computer program where it's all right there and all I have to do is click.
I was actually thinking of this today. My dad is mad about the drains in his house messing up.
Sure.
And I was telling my wife before I come over here to record this, I was like, Ash, this is why I don't want a house, damn it. Like, I don't want to fix stuff. Because you know what happens when the drains aren't working in my apartment? I just call someone.
Yeah.
And he just comes in and fixes it. I don't mow grass.
Yeah.
I love it. Do you know how much more EverQuest I play than someone who has these responsibilities?
Oh my gosh.
But no, EverQuest just occupies a very special place in my heart because I just remember, like, that was my first super MMO experience. Even though I was played casually, even though I only played on friends' accounts.
Yeah.
And it was just such a cool time because I remember, like, I'd go over to their house, and I had several different friends that I did this with. I'd go over to their house, play EverQuest. We might take turns or something. We'd play D&D later.
Right.
It was just a whole Saturday. I remember, actually, this, smell's the strongest sense tied to taste. I honestly think for me, video games are my strongest memory thing. Like I can recall things about video games, and I have been listening to Pearl Jam nonstop.
I saw you post about that. Yeah,
I have been listening to them nonstop since playing EverQuest again because that was the band I listened to all the time while I was playing EverQuest.
Dumb question. What platform is EverQuest on? Are you playing it on PC?
I'm playing it on PC. You can whine it into a Mac.
Yeah.
But I'm having a lot of trouble.
I just didn't know if it was
that.
for a console or whatnot.
There was, I think, Adventures of Norath or something. Actually, excuse me, when the 20th anniversary flare was going on, I was feeling so nostalgic. I actually bought a Fiona Vi figurine from my computer desk on eBay. I bought Lords of EverQuest, the RTS game that came out for PC. I bought that.
That's fine.
Can't wait to play it. In fact...
It's an RTS?
Yes. In fact, I think we should do a playthrough. I think we should do that.
I could be down for that.
I
do like RTSs.
Do you have a disk drive on your computer?
I
could bring one over. I could bring one over. Because it is disk based, but it's a Windows game, so we could just. But I bought the EverQuest trilogy. I bought the one that came with all the ones up to Velios because cloth mat motherfucker.
Oh, did you get it?
Yeah, hell yeah! That was the whole reason to buy it.
Wow.
You don't need discs anymore for EverQuest. You just download it.
Yeah.
But also, interesting fact: if you go to uninstall EverQuest on Windows, it's not going to work through apps and features because EverQuest doesn't actually install in the traditional sense. It just puts the files on your computer and accesses them when you play.
That's how Minecraft at least used to run.
I think Minecraft's an actual install now because I think
it used to just be a Java app and you would.
Yeah,
run it like
I'm not a programmer. I don't know the specifics of EverQuest, but if you try to uninstall it, which don't uninstall EverQuest, you'll always come. It's 10 gigs.
Isn't the original game free to play?
Yes, you could play all the everything that you would get with the first 23 expansions. The only thing locked behind a paywall for EverQuest is TLPs.
What's TLP?
Time Lock Progression Server.
Gotcha.
And if you want to play the last 2 expansion content.
Gotcha.
And I think you're limited on mailing and how much platinum you could carry, which is the highest currency. There's platinum, gold, copper,
Gotcha.
Silver, copper.
Gotcha.
And it's just for everyone that plays EverQuest, it's a nostalgia thing. Absolutely. That's why they do all these TLPs, because they know that's where people want to play. And Mangler, guys, you have until June 8th before Kunark comes out, the first expansion, Ruins of Kunark. Mm-hmm. Go experience EverQuest.
Yeah.
Please. Like, you owe it to yourselves. If you love WoW, June 8th, hell, just go play Classic EverQuest until Classic WoW comes out.
Right.
Like, go and learn, like, do you ever do this with band? Like, if you're listening to a band you really like, and then you look up what influenced them, and you go listen to those bands? That's kind of what this is like. Go love EverQuest. That's what I'm saying. Go kill Fippy Darkpaw outside of Kanos. Or Quanos. Everyone has their own way of pronouncing that.
It reminds me of Neverwinter Nights in its look. I'm looking it up just to see.
Very, very, yeah. But what's funny is, like, in fact, these aren't even the original models. I think the models changed in Lukeland. Yeah, that's what you're looking at right there is the Shadows of Lukeland cover art. And actually, hang on a minute.
Dude, these pictures are some straight up, like,
my favorite kind of fantasy.
These are
art.
old school fantasy.
Yes, I love that old school second edition fantasy art thing.
Okay, tell me that. Okay, that's EverQuest, but tell me that you can't have one of those passionate romance novel titles on this, written by one of those people that old ladies read.
So what he's looking at right now is the Keith Parkinson cover to the original EverQuest. And Keith Parkinson, he did a lot of artwork for Magic the Gathering. He did several of the, I think all the way up to, I think he did Lukeland.
I'm telling you though, Fabio could be right there holding that chick, and they could have some love story.
Right. I understand that you're trying to make a joke, but Keith Parkinson's up. That's hard for me. Okay. We lost him a few years ago, even. But Keith Parkinson, he's absolutely a legend in fantasy artwork. He worked for TSR. He co-designed a collectible card game too, a TCG, which I love TCG as well. But man, it's just the Keith Parkinson art, just everything about EverQuest feels like old fantasy, and that just kicks ass, dude. Like, in my opinion, I just
look at that and tell me that Sylvanas didn't get some inspiration from that.
I think actually what you're looking at here is an image purposely wowing up the first EverQuest cover. It looks like they're making it look more WoW. Especially that's supposed to be an ogre, and it's clearly an orc in that picture.
Oh, gotcha.
And if you look at Fiona there, she looks almost identical to Jaina.
Gotcha.
He's looking at the cover for the PS2 game, EverQuest Online Adventures, the Frontiers thing, which EverQuest Online Adventures I did not hear a whole lot of great things about. But and that's just EverQuest reminds us of what it just reminds me of the way fantasy used to be, and I'm not one of the guys that thinks it has to be that way forever. I'm fine with where fantasy's gone.
You know what? That's why there's the Nintendo Classic and whatnot. People just, every once in a while, they want to pick up that old rectangle of a controller and just play through some old games. There's nothing wrong with that.
Actually, my wife bought me the Super Nintendo Mini for Christmas.
That's tight.
Played it forever that day. I mean, just the kids were on the Switch with their new games. I was on that.
Yeah.
It's
the equivalent to our dads buying a 65 Chevy.
So when a new game comes out, too often now we make new games that we only care about for the first 3 months. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, they're super fun for those first 3 months, but then we'll never play that game again. To me, the true test of a great game is if 20 years later, I look at that, get flooded with memories, sit down. I mean, I'm listening to a band that I haven't listened to. It's probably one of my favorite bands of all time. Yeah. But I hadn't thought about them in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So I started playing EverQuest again. Now I can't stop.
Yeah. No, it's really easy to fly through a 30, 50, or an even 80-hour game nowadays with the advent of the internet being so prevalent. Which back in the early 2000s or whatnot, an 80-hour video game might have took you a better part of a year while you sat there and tried to figure it out.
Right, and there was game FAQs and stuff back then, but you just didn't really think of it.
And I can only imagine in an MMO such as EverQuest that is just a whole new world to explore.
Information is God too, because EverQuest was one of those hardcore RPGs where a decision made in your first 5 levels could make it to where you were unviable in game.
Yeah, crazy.
That's impossible in WoW.
Yeah,
they won't let it be. But
oh no, it's way too linear.
In old school EverQuest, the way you put your stats making your character could make you unviable. And that was so common to computer RPGs in the 90s.
Yeah, and it's not like you can go to a store or whatnot and there's an NPC that will reset all your talent.
Right.
Your stats for 50 gold.
Which that ain't even what you need to do now. You just go change them.
Yeah.
So long as you're in Stormwind or Orgrimmar, you can change anything you want about your character.
Yeah.
In fact, if they weren't already charging for race and class changes, I really think you would be able to do that in Stormwind and Orgrimmar.
Yeah.
Maybe even go to Dalaran and change your faction.
You can change your hair.
Yeah, and most of those, I did not realize that barbers had access to hairstyles that Character Creator didn't until like 4 years ago.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. So, one of my first things I do with a character when I get to the home city is change their hair. When I still played WoW, which I'm probably gonna hop on Classic. Why not?
Oh, I'm hopping on. I have.
But in the meantime, like I said, go to the Mangler server and just experience Classic EverQuest.
All right.
If for no other reason than to really appreciate what WoW's given you.
Well, any other final thoughts on EverQuest and why we should go play it? I actually, honestly, think I'm going to try it.
Yeah, I think everyone should try it. It's free. I mean, in fact, like I said, they're not doing anything about these fan servers either. So if you want to experience Classic EverQuest for free without that paywall, Project 1999 or Legends of Norath or Legacy of Norath, I can't remember what they call it. Norath is the world that EverQuest takes place on. So go out and play them, and it's just a great way. It's a great way to stay in shape.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks all for listening. Check out our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter. If this is like our 6th episode that we put out, actually. So if you're liking some of the things that we're talking about, I mean, we're going to keep doing this no matter what. But we do have a Patreon support page now. So any support we can get is awesome. And otherwise, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.